Whether you have an employment, criminal, family, corporate, or personal injury matter, legal issues can be puzzling. The lawyers at Devry, Smith & Frank make all the pieces fit together.
Welcome back to Real Estate 101. Today we're going to continue our discussion on family law and talk a little bit about family law legal fees. And I'm pleased to be joined once again by John Schuman of Devry, Smith & Frank, LLP. John, welcome back to the show.
It's good to see you, Joe.
All right, John. So can family law lawyers handle a legal case or a family law case for a flat rate?
Well, except for uncontested divorces, which is where everything's settled and all you're getting is divorced, which we do for $1,500, family lawyers cannot do it for a flat rate. And the reason is because family law litigants, like the people who are separating, divorcing married couples and separated common law couples, they are driven by something other than just pure reason. And often it's emotion. And sometimes they want to fight a lot. Sometimes they have distrust for the person. They're not thinking about their case and what it's really worth to them. And they just want to go in and have a battle in court. And that costs a lot more.
Okay, so what are some of the things that can increase the costs in a family law case?
Well, what drives how much it costs is how much the separated couple fights, and that's the main thing. The more you fight, the more it costs. If you can choose a alternative to court, instead of going to court, you can save yourself a lot of money, because court in itself is very expensive. If you can work stuff out with the help of some lawyers and choose a process, either just negotiate an agreement to settle all your issues, or you can go to mediation or perhaps an arbitration or collaborative practice to work out things quickly and easily, you'll save yourself a lot of legal fees. But if you're going to have a big fight in court, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
All right, so why is it that going to court can cost so much money?
Well, court is the only process you can drag someone else into. You and your separated partner have to agree to do mediation, for example. But if your partner doesn't want to cooperate, just wants to stick their head in the sand, then you can drag them to court, you can force them to show up in a courtroom. And because you can force someone to be in court, court has a lot of procedural safeguards. There's a lot of things have to be served very formally. There's certain documents that have to be filed. You have to appear at certain times. And there are very formal documents that have to be filled out. And judges are very concerned about protecting both sides. And that means there's a lot of extra work involved in going to court. And there's a lot of extra time waiting for things to happen in court. And that drives up the cost several times more than any other option you have to resolve your issues.
Okay, so you mentioned costs. Is there any such thing as a court order that may reimburse someone for their costs of going to court?
In Canada, court works on a loser pay system, which means the winning party has their costs, the legal fees, paid by the losing party. Now, there's an exception to that, and the biggest thing in family court is that judges want to see who's been the most reasonable. So if a person's acting crazy, that person can expect to pay the other side's costs. Or if that person is being really aggressive and fighting when they don't need to fight, they can expect to pay their spouse's costs. Now, a big way a judge decides who's reasonable is by looking at offers to settle. Judges want people to settle. Even if you're in court, judges want you to try to mediate or try to negotiate and try to settle things. And if you're not willing to do that, you're going to end up paying your spouse's costs. And that can be from paying a portion of your spouse's costs to every single dime they spent on their lawyer, which means you're paying your lawyer and their lawyer. Okay,
so can you keep your legal fees down by going with a lawyer that charges a lower hourly rate?
Well, as with a lot of things, you usually get what you pay for. Lawyers who have a higher hourly rate, they're often more experienced, and they know how to settle cases quickly or deal with cases quickly. They also know how to get the best results. So when you've got a complicated issue, you may want a lawyer who's got a high hourly rate because they know how to deal with it. You don't want someone stumbling around and not being able to figure it out. Another consideration is that when you have a lawyer who really knows what they're doing, they will come up with a result, either to get you a court order or they'll get you an agreement that will stand the test of time. Because they've been around for a while, they know how things work out in the long run. And if your agreement or your court order stands the test of time, that means you're not going back to court and paying a lawyer again in the future.
Right.
So often going with a more expensive lawyer is a better choice to save money in the end. And you have to remember that more expensive lawyers almost always have less expensive lawyers working for them, or they have law clerks working for them, and those people charge a lower hourly rate and do the things that the expensive lawyer doesn't necessarily have to do, the simple tasks.
All right, so are there any ways to keep your legal fees down once you've retained a lawyer?
Yes, there are. And one of the key things to remember is that lawyers work by the hour. They're selling their time to you. And so the more time a lawyer has to take on your case, the more expensive things will cost. So from that principle, there's a few things you have to remember. One is that lawyers charge for you talking to you or emailing with you. And that means the more you email your lawyer or the more you talk to your lawyer, the more you're going to be charged. And we see that a lot in family law, that people are separated, they really need someone to talk to. And often the lawyers are not the best person, because lawyers deal with the legal sides of divorces, they often deal with the financial sides of divorces, but they're not the person to talk about the emotional side of divorces, and that's where most of the talking happens. So if you need to talk to someone about your divorce, you should speak to your lawyer about getting yourself involved with a therapist or a separation counselor, or some people call them divorce doulas, people who can help you with the emotional sides of your divorce. Another way you can keep your money down is you have to be honest with your lawyer, because if you're not honest with your lawyer, the advice that your lawyer is going to give to you may not be the best for your situation. Lawyers give advice based on what you tell them, and if you give them bad information, they give you bad advice because they don't know what the truth is. And you can get yourself into real trouble, which is another way you run up your legal fees, is by getting yourself into trouble. So if you don't listen to your lawyer's advice, if you go and you breach court orders or you break the law, if you do things that lawyers can see are stupid, and lawyers often, especially experienced lawyers, know when you're going to get yourself into trouble. If you don't listen to them, you're going to get yourself into a mess, and it costs much more money to get out of a mess than it does to avoid the mess in the future. If you can, that's one of the big things that I've learned from practicing law, is that if people get their advice early and they don't make mistakes, they save themselves a lot of money right from the beginning. And obviously, there are some, if you can keep yourself organized and provide your information to lawyers in a way that is, intelligible and not just a crazy, chaotic barrage of information, then that helps keep your legal fees down. Because the more a lawyer has to look for information or try to find stuff or explore your life to find out the important legal parts of your case, the more it's going to cost you to have them do that. So if you can get yourself organized before you see the lawyer, then that helps. And obviously, as I said before, if you can avoid court and you can choose another process or talk to your lawyer about what process is best for you, whether mediation will work in your case, whether collaborative practice will work in your case, then you may be able to save yourself a lot of money, because those are all much less expensive than going to court.
Okay, so are there times where maybe you should just say, forget what it costs and do whatever it takes?
Yes, there are. There are some times when you really have to go quick to court or have to have the fight really fast just to protect yourself or your kids. If your spouse is abusive to you or your children, or is running off with the money, or is going to deprive you and your family from the money that you're entitled to keep yourself going, then you need to get into court fast. And going to court fast can cost a lot of money. I'll give you an example. If you came into my office and said to me, my spouse has just taken the kids' passports and run to the airport, then what you expect me to do is you expect me to get into court with all the court documents that need to be done in a matter of like hours. In order to do that, you're not just going to have me working your case, you're going to have the other lawyers in my office working my case, you're going to have the clerks in my office working your case, you're going to have process servers standing by, everyone's going to be going fast to get to that court fast, and they're all going to be charging for their time. But you need to do that. You need to protect yourself. The same thing happens if you know that your spouse is sending all the money offshore and you're never going to be able to get back. You need to get into court fast. Anytime that your spouse is behaving in an absolutely unreasonable or dangerous manner, you need to get the protection of a court, and you need to forget about what it costs and get the protection that you need.
All right, John, so any last tips for any of our viewers that are getting divorced and are about to embark on a divorce and may need a family lawyer?
Well, get a good lawyer, because a good lawyer will be able to save you money in the end. Not only know how to save you money right away and do things most efficiently, but they'll be able to give you a settlement or a court order that will last you and will prevent you from needing another lawyer in the future.
All right, John, good stuff. Thanks for coming on today's show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next month.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
So there you have it. If you need the help of a top family lawyer, get in contact with John Schuman of Devry Smith Frank, LLP. I'm your host, Joe Trucera. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.